What? I'm an idiot, aren't I? Moments have you experienced? Someone told me their birthday was on Friday the 13th this year. After acknowledging how much that would suck, I found a long list online of every upcoming Friday the 13th for the next several decades to check that it would never happen to me. I made it 50 years down the list before I realized a slight pattern, and that my birthday won't ever not be on the 18th. Although, interesting fact, because of the day the Gregorian calendar started, the 13th falls on a Friday more often than any other day. Once I wanted to test my voicemail, so I used my house phone to dial my cell, and when my phone rang, I actually answered it expecting someone to be on the other line. I used a leaf blower on an anthill. I thought it'd be an easy way to get rid of it. I did not consider how terrifying flying ants are. I once painted myself into a corner while painting the basement floor. I had to crawl out the basement window, and there are still footprints down there to remind me of my Gomer moment. On multiple occasions, I've managed to successfully leave my keys in the lock in the car. I have no idea how my car has not been stolen yet. Went through a drive-thru, ordered, paid, thanked them, and then bolted before they even had a chance to hand me my food. Didn't realize my abject stupidity until about 10 minutes later when I reached for a fry and got nothing but air. Manager at Burger King here, don't be ashamed, this happens far more often than you'd think. I'd say once or twice a week at least, you're not the only one. Vacuumed half of my room, music in my headphones, the music stops, and I realize the vacuum cleaner isn't even turned on. Step 1. Obtain yogurt. Step 2. Remove lid. Step 3. Throw yogurt in the trash can. Step 4. Look at your hand holding the yogurt lid. Step 5. Evaluate all of your life choices. Hey, you sound like the narrator whenever he does anything related to food before he's had at least 2 coffees, so I can't judge you. That and dipping my paintbrush in my drinks and drinking the water from my paintbrush cleaning pot, although I've done that one multiple times while wide awake. When I was a kid, maybe 6 or 7, parents were building a new garage and just poured the slab, and I thought the concrete was hard enough to walk on. So I walked around, but there was one soft spot I stepped in. It ended up being right at the front of where my mum still parks her car and sees it every day. That footprint is smaller than my hand now. Shaving myself in the shower, so I rinsed the razor blade. I looked down at it and there were still some hairs caught in the edges of the blade, so I figured, I'm just gonna run my thumb through here to clean this off. Stupid. And it was still stupid when I did it again several years later. As an update, it feels satisfyingly good to know that I'm not the only one to have done this. Well, in Texas, there's a lot of scorpions. During the summer, it's pretty much vital to have some sort of shoe on. If not, it's like finding an 8-legged landmine with your foot. So I put the ones I found inside the house in an old Folgers coffee container. Around a week later, I thought all the scorpions would be dead, so I dumped them on the countertop to see the corpses. And the 3 or 4 I found scurried around like a mother fricker off the countertop into the carpet, and I screamed like a little girl. I once threw my wallet onto a stranger's shed roof because I'm an idiot. Walking down the street, playing catch with myself using my wallet, getting cocky, going higher, trying to spin it, going higher, lands on a shed, frick. One time, my dad was at the beach and there were seagulls bothering him. He decided to throw his car keys at the seagull, which proceeded to pick them up and fly away. He chased the seagull until it eventually dropped them, but he says that he almost died when he saw his keys flying away. Talking on the phone while packing my bag for the day. Where the hell is my phone? I work in IT and had a ticket for a user whose email was broken that I was trying to get a hold of by emailing them for 3 days until my boss slowly talked me through the situation until it hit me. Opening the door to a room to stick my head in and talk to someone briefly before saying bye and closing the door on my own head. I've done this multiple times over the years and I'm still always surprised when the door goes clunk against my noggin. I pulled up to pump at a gas station. I went inside to pay cash. I walked back out and drove off with no gas. I once accused a coworker who didn't get along with me of stealing my sunglasses in front of half the staff. We all know where this is headed. When I finished my rant, my sunglasses fell off the top of my head into my hands. I quietly apologized with my shades on. I dropped my straightener. Instead of jumping back so it didn't burn my feet like I usually do, I grabbed the gosh darn hot plate and held on to it until I put it back on the counter. I have no idea how my body didn't automatically let it go, but darn did I get burned by that. On a related note, I frequently try to take metal pans out of the oven with my bare hands. I bet looking at naughty adult material will divert the blood away from the debilitating pressure this headache is causing, and now I've got two problems to deal with. One time I was making Kool-Aid and I dumped the powder in the trash can and put the packet in the Kool-Aid container. There's something about the muscle memory involved with trash cans that causes the brain to just shut down. I've thrown away far too many spoons. I once kept pressing the same button on an elevator trying to get to the floor below, not realizing the button I was pressing was for the floor I was already at. I was wondering why the door kept opening. Needless to say, I felt like an idiot. On my last day of finals last semester, I was so dead tired that I walked all the way out to my car, about half a mile from campus, when I realized I'd forgotten my expensive Ray-Ban sunglasses in the classroom. So, naturally, I walked all the way back to the classroom where people were still taking the exam when my professor asked me what I was looking for. I asked her if she'd seen my sunglasses, to which she replied without a beat, "You mean the ones on your head?" One time I tried to pry apart 2 frozen hamburger patties with the patties in my right hand and the knife in my left pointed into my right hand. An hour later at the emergency room, the attending nurse had trouble believing I was a university student. I called the LAPD because the car window was stolen. The officer comes and rolled up the window. I forgot I rolled it down. I'm still full of shame and I can hear him laughing when I go to sleep. I live in a region that doesn't get snow often, let alone more than a few inches when it finally does. Finally, it snowed here and it was so exciting, except that I still have to go to work. So when I got to my door, I grabbed the handle and yanked, trying to pry that darn thing open. I couldn't believe it. It was frozen shut. Finally, after almost falling down and busting my butt, I called my boss and said, "My car door is frozen shut. I'm just going to stay home today." The next day, I had to leave for work again, and at this point, the majority of the snow was melted. I unlocked the door, got in, and started the engine, when all of a sudden, it hit me. I'd never unlocked my door on the previous day. I did not feel like a smart woman. I never realized why it's always the last place you look until I was 27. Oh God, Jesus Christ. Well, you're doing better than the narrator who took until his mid-30s making this video to realize that, of course, everything we find is technically in the last place we looked. I am very, very annoyed at myself right now. I was doing laundry one time and I had half a load of whites left. Underneath the whites was a white blanket. I did the half load of whites and then did the white blanket. My girlfriend asked, "Why didn't you just do the white blanket with the rest of the whites?" We got into a whole argument about it and then she gave me my alone time and I thought to myself, oh yeah, she was right about this the whole time. I had one this morning. I went downstairs to eat the candy bar that I bought last night and had legitimately forgotten that I'd eaten it the night before. They just renovated the Wendy's I frequent, and I filled one hand with ketchup because I didn't line the spout up with the cup. I put a bowl in my glove box where my registration was, got pulled over by a cop. To clarify, I don't eat cereal in my car. To further clarify for the many, many people who still aren't getting it, it was a bowl for smoking substances. At the end of the whole encounter, only a ticket for speeding, and he made me smash my bowl, the cop said, and this is an absolute quote, "Next time, don't put your crap where you gotta grab the thing." I think he planned something cooler to say, but it just didn't come out right. Trying to make chili yesterday night, I opened up the can and I dumped the kidney beans into the waste bin instead of the drainer. I stared at it for way too long before my brain registered my goof. I had Texas chili yesterday night. making these delicious, soft chocolate chip cookies in 8th grade foods and sewing. After they got out of the 375-degree oven, I grabbed the burning tray, not having the patience to wait, clenched onto it because I was in shock, and then got carted in front of the whole class all in a matter of 40 to 45 seconds. Had blisters on every finger. Had a date last week. The girl came over. I cooked. While we're eating and talking, conversation switches over to methods of opening wine bottles. I told her about the trick where you put it in your shoe and bang the bottom against a wall, and I grabbed the bottle of red that was on the table to demonstrate. The bottle that I'd just opened 30 seconds earlier. And now what I'm known for on the internet is how I poured wine all over myself. I was washing dishes and I had an itch in my ear. Gave myself a cosmic wet willy. Back in college, I fished a massive number 2 out of the toilet and put it in the freezer to prove to one of my friends how big it was. This was after the invention of camera phones. Ugh. When I was young, I wanted to grow up to be a fire truck. Wiped my butt with poison oak. Sounds like a real pain in the butt, right? You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. This may be my first time tripping, but are you certain you want to be drinking? I asked a friend the legitimate question while waiting for the acid to kick in. The extremely hoppy beer and Camel Wides he had been smoking eventually caught up with his asthma. After an hour of solid wheezing and no help from inhalers, I finally drove him to the hospital for the steroid treatment. Fricking idiot. In high school, I thought my friend's mace sprayer was a Bianca breath freshener. We were on our way to ski and I was in the back of a full-sized station wagon. I suffered in silence for God knows how long because I didn't want my friends to think less of me. I remember when the stream hit that back of my throat, the most excruciating pain. I buckled over and internalized said pain. My eyes were watering and I curled up in the fetal position and rode the pain out. I might not have been very quiet, and my friends maybe did notice, but because I was trying to tough it out, they didn't say or do anything. I was at a souvenir shop last year, and there was a bowl full of candy. Candy-coated chocolate designed to look like pebbles, near the register. There was a little spoon in the bowl for people to pick up some candy, place it in their hand, and then eat it. In my absent-mindedness, I eliminated the middleman and just put the whole spoon in my mouth. I was 26 years old. I'll never forget the look of utter disbelief on the cashier's face as I realized what I had done. In retrospect, all the times when women I really liked clearly wanted to sleep with me, and I stood around completely oblivious to the cues and then realized what had happened months later. My lord, I am not a smart man. Playing Ultimate Frisbee on campus at the University of Arizona, I overran a throw and tried to slow down by jumping into and hoping to spring off of the edge of a raised cactus garden. But instead, I overshot the edge and ran into a small, wide, and very dense cola cactus. My balance was lost and I had already got thorns in my legs. I was left flailing with only 2 choices. A. Step forward onto more cacti, or B. Put my hands down to save my fall and recoil from there. I chose B and popped off yelling in pain. 5 seconds later, I was surrounded by friends pulling thorns out of my arms and legs. One genius ran to the campus bookstore and bought Elmer's glue. It's an Arizona trick, you let the glue dry and peel it off, it takes the thorns with it. I ended up pulling a 3-inch thorn from the soft spot between my thumb and pointer finger in absolute horror. Eventually, I got about 90% of them out and was able to get home. In short, cactus. Ow. Oh, and as an epilogue, one friend, while helping pull out the thorns, said, "You'd better get laid tonight after all this." I laughed, it had been a while and we'll leave it at that, and said, okay. Sure enough, he was right. I had a fantastic evening. In college, a girl at the campus coffee shop I'd been to maybe twice told me she noticed it seemed like I liked the breakfast there, and smilingly asked why my girlfriend wouldn't cook me breakfast. I responded something like, "Even if I had a girlfriend, I live in a dorm with no kitchen. No one cooks there. I eat cereal." I felt like Dwight Schrute about a week later when I realized what was happening there. As a bit of background, I never met my grandpa. He died before I was born. However, I knew his siblings and they're a very close part of my family. So about a month ago, my great-grandma died. On Facebook, someone posted an old picture of her and her children. My boyfriend asked me who was in the picture, and I told him, "This is my great-uncle and that's my great-aunt, but I have no idea who that other kid is." About 20 minutes later, it clicked and I yelled out, "That other kid was my grandpa!" I got involved in an argument between my then-girlfriend and my mother. The narrator assumes that this submission was made in the last remaining seconds of the writer's existence, while he held the door back against the assault of both irritated primary females in his life. Rest in peace, my friend, and thank you for submitting this cautionary tale for us. I was sipping some tea, holding it in my hand, and the condensation of the glass made my hand wet. I thought, I want to dry that off, and I attempted to get a napkin, with the same hand. So I dropped my tea and it clattered to the table. I think I need to step out of the gene pool. Right, I forgot to say I'm in the US South where we have iced tea. That's right, cold tea. Went on a group date with an identical twin. I got there early, so it was just me and the twins. After 10 minutes, they ask, "You can tell us apart, right?" "Yep, you're X and you're Y." "Nope, got that wrong." The pond near my parents' house was frozen. Stupid me, having never seen ice before and having just moved over from Vietnam at the time, decided to walk on it to see if it was really frozen. That was a cold, embarrassing day. I once tried pressing what looked like the push button of a faucet when I went to wash my hands after using a public bathroom. It didn't do anything, it was just a metal pipe. Then I saw someone else put his hands under the faucet next to me and water came out. It was a sensor type all along. My mum and I needed to take my car to the shop to get it fixed. Our plan was we could drive separately there, and then we'd drive back together in the same car. Typical situation, right? Well, we got about halfway to the shop when we realized we were in the same car already and forgot to actually drive my car to the shop as well. In short, went to drive my car to the shop to be fixed without my car. I was at a 7-Eleven and I had my drink on the counter while fixing hot dogs. I went to take a drink, but instead of Coke, I was surprised when I poured relish into my mouth. Forgot I was about to put some on a hot dog, and the surprise caused me to spit everywhere and spill a crap ton on the floor. I drove my car for a solid month with what I thought was the battery light on. I got it checked multiple times at multiple places, and everywhere said the battery was fine. It turns out it was my coolant light. I was once cutting something for a school project with an X-Acto knife using my leg as a table. I looked down and realized what a tragedy it would be if I were to cut my shorts. Luckily, I only needed a band-aid when I cut my leg. I was the pastry chef at a restaurant with a foul-mouthed, extremely short-tempered chef who was actually a cool dude and a very talented guy beneath all the bluster. The local farmer's market was setting up outside and he asked if I wanted anything for dessert specials. I asked for cherries. I fricking love cherries and they were in season at the time. He said okay and left. He came back about half an hour later and put a big full farmer's market sack of cherries on my counter and asked me to juice them. I'd planned on baking them into something or maybe making a sorbet, but hell, if my chef wanted me to make cherry juice instead, that's cool too. So I asked, wait, how do I juice them? He says, use the juicer? The citrus juicer? Really? Yeah, the one you were using to juice oranges not even 2 hours ago. I had no idea how one would go about using a citrus juicer to juice cherries. And the last thing I wanted was this guy jumping down my throat over asking too many dumb questions or rage-hurling lemons across the kitchen with enough force to shatter soap dispensers they came into contact with. I tried to choose my words as carefully as possible. Do I juice them like oranges? Yes. Could you come over here and demo it for me when you're not too busy? Yes, I will come over and show you how to do it. I'll be back in a minute. I just heaved a sigh of relief and decided a handful of fresh cherries would be the best thing to soothe my jangled nerves. I opened the bag and it was not full of cherries. It was full of blood oranges, which of course would juice just like the regular ones. I once waved my hands under a faucet for a substantial amount of time before realizing I needed to turn it on manually. As a man who's been accustomed to an e-reader and now taps books while reading to try to change the font and size, I sympathize with being ruined by modern amenities. Made a pressure bomb with water and dry ice in a physics lab one time. It was balanced on a stool in the middle of the room, and we were all terrified when it pressurized and didn't explode. We tried knocking it off the stool, it still didn't go off. I went over and picked it up. Must have been adrenaline preventing me from thinking clearly because someone handed me a knife and said that I should make a little hole and use the pressure to spray the water out at high speeds. Result? No crap, the thing exploded in my hands. Couldn't hear anything for about 15 seconds, and my whole chest was a tad bruised. But I turned out fine. Immediately had the moment of, well, that was really stupid. Dumbest thing hands down I've ever done, and I did it with some of the smartest people I know cheering me on. Not sure if somehow nobody realized what was going to happen or if they just wanted to see me do it. In short, I detonated a pressure bomb in my hands. I ate fish food. I don't know why I thought that would ever be a good idea, but the second it hit my tongue, I was chucking up. Like I literally had to dash to the toilet and projectile spew. Because I decided to eat fish food. My brother bet me that I couldn't set the trigger off on a rat trap without getting caught in it. Think of a bear trap, but smaller and without teeth. I did not win. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.